very good morning to you and welcome to NTV Today on this Tuesday morning with me, Smriti Vidyarthi. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Remember, this is the show that brings you everything you need to know from across the country, and we will have a focus on the topic of maize this morning. And why? Well, we certainly do know that maize is a truly emotive subject across the country. At the end of the day, it does bring food onto your table. That is your unga and ugali. So we will delve into the issue as to why maize is so important, but also the topic of conversation is on that crop because the task force of stakeholders in the maize industry has invited members of the public today, also farmers and relevant stakeholders, to express their views, share their opinions and recommendations, and give their input on how the maize industry can be developed in a more positive and structured way. Now, the public hearing is set to take place as of today, this morning, starting in Trans Nzoia and then later this afternoon in Uasin Gishu. So that conversation will primarily take place from our Eldoret studio with NTV's Lois Wangoi, and she will join us with her panel. Also this morning, we will hear from the business desk. Julian Zamboko joins us in studio. He'll have the very latest. And not to forget, Kevin Mutai coming to us live from Mombasa with his input on the conversation. NTV's Martin Mwara live from Moranga, and also we'll have the sports news coming to us from studio with NTV's Sean Cardovillis. Great to see you all this morning. A very good morning to you, and as I said, we'll hear from you later on. But let's kick off with Martin Mwara live from Moranga. Good morning, Martin. How are you contributing to the conversation about maize this morning?
Okay. Good morning, Smith. As you have rightly said, yes, you are coming live from Mokoyo, which is in Moranga County. Now, the maize issue, which is, as you have said, is very emotive. And last year during Mashujaa Day, the president lashed out at leaders after NCPB was involved in a major scandal after paying cartels instead of genuine farmers. Now, in Moranga, we don't have large-scale maize farmers, but we have so many millers. But I will be talking to some of them just to tell me their views about maybe the problems they're undergoing just to get this maize for mailing. And without further ado, let me talk to a gentleman who is over here just to tell me a brief about his problems. Okay, unaweza nianzia na majina, uniambie ni shida gani wewe kama mila na mnapitianga juu ya mahindi?
Majina yangu ni Dominic Mwaneki Kireji Hoi. Tunasiaka mahindi hapa area ya Mokoyo, Moranga County. Mashida ambayo sisi tuko nazo ni availability of maize, fluctuation of the prices, and the market of maize. Because when there are fluctuation in the prices of maize, you see you also have to have fluctuation in the market prices. So that becomes a challenge when you come to getting the consumer.
Now, you have seen that the president has formed a task force to look into maize issues. Maybe unaona ni kama hii task force italeta usawa na itamaliza hii mambo ya mashida kwa wakulima wa mahindi na wanunuaji wa mahindi.
Itatusaidia kwa sababu when we have a stable market prices of the maize, it will go back to the maize, the customer prices, consumer prices will, I think it will stabilize. Yeah.
Now, sasa kulingana na wewe maoni tu yako, unaona hii shida ya mahindi serikali inaweza, kwa sababu kuna pesa ambazo zilipotea bilioni, karibu bilioni 1. Unaona ni serikali iko na uwezo wa kupigana na ufisadi katika wizi wa mahindi, wizi wa pesa za umma?
Kwa vile tunaona kama wanajaribu, kwa sababu kama wangekuwa wanajaribu task force haiketokea pale, lakini wacha tugoje, tutaona.
Kumekuwa na task force mingi zinafomiwa na unapata zinapeana recommendation, lakini recommendation haitumiki. Sasa unaona ni kama itasaidia?
That is something to come and see, we'll see. Hiyo hatuwezi ongea kwa sababu hiyo tutajua tu baadaye.
Maybe a parting shot to the government, mambo ya mahindi ni which is it?
Kwa serikali tunaomba kwanza watengeneze, there are very many idle lads in Kenya. Watengeneze hiyo so that najua when maize is available it will be easier for us to get maize. Hiyo kitu ingine, wafungue borders is very much complicated. Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia. Don't complicate the thing so much. Ndio tunaweza kuvuka polepole, tunaenda tunarudi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Asante sana.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Smriti. Those are just some of the views of one of the millers. I'll be engaging others just to give me their perspective about the team that has been set aside to look into maize issues. Back to you, Smriti.
All right, Martin, thanks very much for that insight, and we will hear from you later on. From the county of Murang'a, let's take you to the coast, and that is the county of Mombasa, where NTV's Kevin Mutai is standing by. Kevin, good to see you this morning. Of course, the coast is not a primary provider of maize, but no doubt there are some millers there, and also ultimately the people of Mombasa consume maize. Tell us more from your end.
Well, that is very true, Smriti. First, good morning from the county of Mombasa. It is indeed very true that this region, the coast region, do not produce the large quantities of the grain, and but of course we have people who depend on that particular product, especially millers, and of course to the consumers, those of us who like ugali. But of course the issue of maize has been of key concern lately. Remember that even right now we are still following up on cases such as, remember recently we did a story concerning some tons of maize that was imported from Mozambique, and they were stored at a particular container freight station in Changamwe until it was discovered by detectives from the Special Crimes Unit. This maize was tested by the Kenya Bureau of Standards, and it was declared unfit for human consumption because tons and tons and large quantities of it was found to have failed on the aflatoxin test. And of course that particular maize, as we're speaking right now, the consignment is being banned at Bamburi Cement using their facilities there. It is an issue that has become very it's been concerned. There's been various concerns about the ongoing importation of this particular produce, because there are various individuals who are using these chances to import the grain and of course sell it, or rather sneak it into the market. And of course there are concerns that those who grow, the farmers who actually grow this particular product, do not benefit, yet they are unscrupulous people, individuals who are using various means to get the grain into the country. We are still following up on that, and we'll be joining the conversation later to delve deeper on what's happening in this issue of maize. Of course, we're also following up on another story, the transformation of Mamangina Drive. Remember recently the National Lands Commission Chairman Mohamed Suzuri was here to oversee the process of reclamation of 20 acres of land that was that has been grabbed in that particular region. This comes after the directive of President Uhuru Kenyatta ordering the Ministry of Lands and the NLC to work together with the county government to ensure that the 20 acres of land hived off by individual or other private developers is returned to facilitate the transformation of Mamangina Drive to a world-class waterfront, whereby we'll have people coming there enjoying the facilities. And of course we are told that the contractor, that is Hufi, are already on site, and they're yet to begin the groundbreaking today or probably tomorrow after they have all the paperwork ready. And Smriti, those are just a few of the stories that we'll be following here from here in Mombasa, and we hope to join the conversation on maize so that we can be able to highlight on some of the issues that are affecting the sector, of course, and agriculture at large, and some of the ways that people and the key stakeholders in that particular sector feel that some of the key issues that needs to be improved, so that the maize farming in the country can be improved, and so as to also benefit those who largely depend on the crop. Back to you, Smriti.
Mutai, live from our Mombasa studio there at the coast. Thank you, and more from you later on. Next up, we are now introducing NTV's Julian's Amboko. He is our business anchor. Julian's, karibu sana to the broadcast. What do you have in store for us this morning?
Thank you very much, Smriti. On the business desk today, we are looking at the petroleum prices which were reviewed yesterday by the Energy Regulatory Commission. They take effect today, and it's quite a relief for motorists and consumers. Remember, last year the Finance Act came into force, and what we had is the 8% value-added tax on petroleum products. So yesterday's downward review of prices was quite a relief for many. Also, we'll be looking at the Stanbic Bank, which is issuing its economic outlook for 2019. Last week we had ICA Lion Group giving their outlook. Yesterday we had Seaton Investments giving their outlook, and there's been a bit of a consensus view around what the projections are for 2019. GDP is expected to come at about 5.8, 5.9%. So we'll be wanting to see whether Stanbic Bank also conforms to these expectations. In news further afield, we'll be looking at Britain, whereby Prime Minister Theresa May is supposed to table to go before the House of Commons for the meaningful vote on her Brexit deal and how this will impact economies such as Kenya. Will we be compelled to review some of the bilateral agreements that we have? So that's what we'll be following up on the business, and more will be coming subsequently in this bulletin.
All right, Julian, thank you. Certainly look forward to more on the business front. And of course, the issue of maize certainly does fall into the world of business. Still on the issue of maize, let's take you to our correspondent Melita Oletenges for more from his side. Melita.
Indeed, thank you so much, Smriti. We are coming to you from Nyeri County, as you rightly put it. And today we are also contributing to the topic, that is the maize crisis that is experienced in the country from time to time, and whether there will be a lasting solution found by the task force that commences its investigations today, and of course forging the way forward for farmers, producers of these very vital products. And of course, Nyeri County is not a notable producing county of maize, but of course we have consumers here who get affected when this arises, and also we will be speaking to them. And we are right about now, I'm just going to be joined by a number of consumers here. Utaanza na jina lako alafu tuambie wewe kama mfanyabiashara katika kaunti ya Nyeri, unaweza kutueleza mara kwa mara ukitokea hitilafu ama ukitokea kesi ambazo zinazunguka mahindi, huwa unaathirika vipi?
Kwa majina naitwa Sir Charles Degwa, mimi ni kiongozi wa bodaboda katika kaunti yetu ya Nyeri. Kusema ukweli, katika nchi yetu tuko na shida sana ya mahindi. Na ukiangalia sana wakulima wanalima, wanafanya kazi yao, lakini kuna cartel wengi sana wanakuanga katika padi ya mahindi. That's why unaona mpaka sisi wananchi wa kawaida tunaathirika, kwa sababu ile mahindi ndio tunategemea kwa unga. Kwa hivyo unakuta unga inakaa ikipanda kila wakati, inapanda kila wakati. Lakini shida tunaonelea ya kwamba ni kama ni viongozi wetu, haswa wale MCAs wale wanawekwa kwa hiyo industry ya mahindi, kwa sababu wakulima wanafaa kuwa na minister wa mkulima ambaye anajua shida za wakulima, lakini sio mtu tu ati anakuja anatoka huko alafu anakuwa minister. So tungeuliza serikali yetu waweze kutafuta namna yenye wataweka mtu yenye ni mkulima, ili anafiru ile pain wale wakulima wanafiru wa Rift Valley, kwa sababu ukiangalia Rift Valley ndio wanalima mahindi sana, ili waweze kutoa zile cartel. Lakini tukiendelea tu hivi, hii shida itakuwa, utaona watu wanakataa kulima hiyo mahindi na waenda kwa ukulima wa kitu kingine. So tunauliza serikali waingilie, kama ni CS awe ni CS mwenye anajua venye anafanya, ili akikondoa masho kwa wale wakulima wengine, wale wakatela wataogopa na watahepa.
Pengine Rais Uhuru Kenyatta aliweza kuleta pamoja task force ambayo hii leo itaanza majadiliano na wakulima katika kaunti tofauti ambazo zinashiriki katika kupanda mmea huu. Pengine vitu ambavyo ungetaka task force hiyo iweze kuangalia kwa undani ni mambo kama yapi?
First, we are expecting nothing from that task force, kwa sababu najua wataenda hivyo, watakutwa na wale makatel, na utaonelea mkulima atatoa maoni yake na atatoa shida zake zote. Lakini wakati ile task force itakuwa inamalizia ile kazi, utakuta ile task force tayari imenunuliwa na wale makatel, kwa sababu ni makatel wako na nguvu sana na hatujui ni akina nani. So hata sisi tunafeel wakulima wetu, kwa sababu kama my grandmother analima huko, sasa wakati ananyanyaswa ni sisi tunanyanyaswa. Tukiwa hapa Nyeri tunanyanyaswa kwa unga, na ni kwa sababu tu nyanya alinyanyaswa huko kwa ukulima. So tunauliza ya kwamba serikali kama niyo task force wa make sure ile report watakuja nayo ifuatiliwe mpaka mwisho. Wale waliiba mali ya umma ya mahindi, walikula mapesa ya wakulima, washikwa na wawekwe ndani na waende jela. That's true. Yeah.
Shukran sana. Maybe you're going to get just another view from one of the residents here. Anza na jina lako kisha utueleze. Kumekuwa hasa na mambo mengi ambayo yanazingira swala zima la ununuzi na uzaji wa mahindi. Je, pengine wewe kama mkazi wa kaunti hii ya Nyeri unaathirika vipi mara kwa mara?
Kwa majina naitwa Steven, huanga na bebe ya UB, ndio bei yangu. Story na unga imezidi sana juu. Kwanza hakuna kitu huanga tunaona, hakuna matokeo yani tunapatanga after zile vikundi kutengenezwa na serikali, na hasa kama mimi mwananchi unga ndio kitu ya rahisi sana naweza jinunulia, na venye tu napata hata serikali inasema unga yanguke bei hakuna. So kaa wanashindwa kufuatilia kaa unga ilianguka bei kaa venye walisema, hakuna story tutakuja kusaidika juu venye tu tulianza kitambo. Serikali inasema kitu hakuna wenye wanafuatilia, so hiyo maneno ikaleta shinda hivyo.
Na pengine wewe kama mkazi wa kaunti Nyeri una imani na task force ambayo ilibuniwa na rais, na pengine ni mambo yepi ambayo ungependa waweze kuangalia?
Kwangu mimi sina imani na hiyo, sababu si ya kwanza. Kuna zingine zimeformiwa kwa sekta mbalimbali na hakuna matokeo huanga tunapata. Wakisema wametengeneza hiyo kamati, after hapo hatunanga results tunapata kutoka kwa hiyo kamati. Kwa hivyo hata kama wanaweza tengeneza, kama mwananchi wa kawaida hakuna ile tunategemea ati tunaweza pata ati ilisema. For example jana Maraga alisema koti inaenda na njia isiyo sawa. Sasa kama inaenda wanajua na hakuna hatua wanachukua, so hata kama mwananchi hatuna hata sisi na kitu ya kujifunia kuwa ati zinaformiwa hiyo nini.
Shukran sana. Maybe just get a last comment here from one of the residents. Just start with your name and tell us, on the side of farmers, what do you think is the lasting solution that will enable to have a transparent process whenever they are selling and buying maize?
Kwa majina naitwa Lodwanjao. Mimi ni mkazi wa hapa Nyeri, mwanafunzi katika shule ya Karatina University. Hivyo mimi ningependa kusema kama watu farmers wa mahindi, they should form cooperative societies ndio kuweza kujuana nani farmer wa mahindi na nani mwingine, kwa sababu haiwezi kuwa mtu ana supply mahindi worth 200 million. There's no one who owns such a shamba, labda the Kenyatta's only. Kitu kingine ningependa kuongelelea ni kuwa our farmers wanafaa wakuwe subsidized in terms of fertilizers, in terms of workforce. Wapewe fertilizers zile ziko cheap ndio tuweze kuwa good producers.
Thank you so much, Smriti. As you've heard from Nyeri residents, those are just some of the views. Of course, some of them have no total confidence with the task force and the discussions, and they're saying clearly that they feel the pinch when farmers from areas producing maize are affected, and they're saying that they are in solidarity with them. Of course, also giving their suggestions in regards to what the farmers should do, and in regards what the government should also do in order to have a smooth process when it comes to selling and buying of maize. But for now, over to you, Smriti.
Right, Melita Oletenga is coming to us live from the county of Nyeri. Thanks very much. Interesting to hear those views, and no doubt Lois and her panel of guests will be able to comment on some of those views. One of the residents in the area saying that he doesn't think that anything will come out of this task force session. We'll touch more on what to expect in just a moment, but first, NTV's Sean Cardavillis has been on standby, waiting patiently to bring us an update on what to expect from the world of sports during our 1 o'clock broadcast. Sean.
Thank you very much, Smriti. A very good morning to you. Quite a bit happening overnight in the world of sport. First of all, this news from this morning. For the first time since 2017, when she won the title when she was pregnant, Serena Williams back on the court. The big news from Australia is the heat up to 49 degrees Celsius in parts of the country. But Serena Williams brushing aside her opponent in 49 minutes it took her to go through to the next round. Manchester City pulling,
Thank you. Now back to our focus, and that is on maize, the emotive topic that affects pretty much every single Kenyan across the country. Now, as I said earlier, a public hearing is set to take place this morning by the Maize Task Force in Trans Nzoia and later this afternoon in Uasin Gishu. Now, here's a bit of context. 2 months after President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered that a task force be set up to look into the crisis in the maize industry, the task force is officially kicking off, as I said, with public participation sessions this morning. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture published a schedule of activities to be held across the country this week, as well as what their goal is. Now, they published a list of 7 objectives to be achieved, which they hope will be addressed in the public sittings. Now, these objectives are, firstly, reviewing the current and emerging issues in the maize sub-sector. Secondly, to look at policy, legal and institutional reforms. Thirdly, recommendations on increasing the production and productivity of maize and also mechanisms to reduce the high cost of maize production. Also, the 5th point is to review and recommendations on post-harvest loss reduction, and also review and give recommendations for streamlining of the maize market structure, and also give recommendations on the appropriate mechanisms to determine the maize purchase price for the strategic food reserve. Right, so those are the 7 points that the ministry and also the president is hoping that the maize task force and the public that participate in these sessions will address. The ministry also says that these public participation sessions will be held at the county headquarters for easier access by members of the public who wish to give their views. Now, the task force will split into 2 teams to hold sittings today in Trans Nzoia, as I said, and then Uasin Gishu, also in Kakamega and Bungoma. Now, tomorrow the teams proceed to Nandi and Elgeyo Marakwet, and then conclude on Thursday in Nakuru and in Nyandarua as well. All right, so there you have an update as to what's happening as of today. More from Lois Wangoi. But first, as the Maize Task Force officially does begin its public sittings, let's just take a look at some of the stories that made headlines in the maize industry back in 2018. Now, the Deputy President, William Ruto, said that it was important for farmers to diversify into other crops like avocados, a favorite amongst many Kenyans, and that those who were not willing to do so were fools. Well, that statement was made in Trans Nzoia, and it, of course, elicited sharp reactions from both farmers and politicians. Listen in.
Speaking in Kitale, Deputy President William Ruto once again urged farmers to consider farming other crops.
Tumesema tujaribu kuendelea tupande mimea mingine diversification. Naibu wa Rais, nimefanya diversification for the last 4 years. 100,000 tissue culture banana subsidized. 600,000 tea plantation subsidized. Coffee 600. Pia tuna introduce coffee hapa. Mzungu alikuwa amesema msipande kahawa. Na hiyo sheria ilitolewa sijui 30 years ago. This area coffee does very well.
Wale wanakupinga wewe bwana governor wakati unaongea mambo ya diversification, hawa ni watu wajinga. Hawafai kuwa viongozi hata wa kuchunga ng'ombe. Dunia mzima watu wanafikiria vile tutakuwa na mimea ambayo itatupatia pesa.
It is the same statement that had earlier pissed off 3 North Rift Jubilee MPs, Alfred Keter of Nandi Hills, Joshua Kutuny of Cherangany, and Moiben MP Silas Terren, who had accused the Deputy President of being behind the woes faced by maize farmers in the North Rift, Kenya's breadbasket.
Kwa hivyo, we are calling for investigation, particularly to the one Deputy President, on the issues touching on fertilizer and the importation of maize.
Wakulima mjue hivi ya kwamba tunasema sisi shida zetu mingi ya mahindi, ya fertilizer na hii mambo yote imeletwa na Mheshimiwa Naibu wa Rais na ofisi yake. Tunataka ofisi yake ichunguzwe.
Claims that politicians allied to the DP dismissed. They termed the assertions as sideshows aimed at tainting Ruto's name after he declared interest to run for the presidency in 2022. The Strategic Food Trust Fund, which is chaired by former Cabinet Minister Noah Wekesa, had announced 2,300 shillings as the new price that the government will purchase a 90 kg bag of maize, sparking protests from farmers in the region. The farmers are demanding 3,600 shillings for a 90 kg bag of maize.
Tuko na shita na hiyo pay ambao serikali ilitangaza. Kusema kweli, saa hii mwezi wa 12 wakulima watakana wawe saa hii wakitayarisha mfungo wengine, lakini kwa sasa kwa vile serikali haijalipwa kwa sababu pay ni chini, watu wamekufa moyo.
Watu wa Trans Nzoia, watu wote tunaomba His Excellency the President, kuna ripoti imepitishwa bungeni ya kuomba serikali inunue mahindi ya wananchi kwa gunia moja shilingi 3,600. Na mimi nakuomba wewe pamoja na President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta mkae pamoja na msikie malilio ya hawa wananchi.
In the North Rift, desperate farmers are resorting to all avenues to earn something from the grain they have.
Kama hapa Milas tunalipwa na 1,700. So tumeamua hiyo ndio the last option. Hakuna penye tunaweza peleka sisi kama wakulima, hakuna penye tunaweza peleka mahindi.
They claim government takes forever to pay them, saying the National Cereals and Produce Board pays them 6 to 8 months after delivery of produce. The Deputy President insists it is time for a rethink.
Rais alikuwa juzi kule China na amefungua soko ya kuuza chai, ya kuuza kahawa, ya kuuza macadamia, ya kuuza avocado kule China.
Maize and wheat farming are the main economic activities of many in the region, but some of them feel hard done by the government. The long-running maize scandal remains a sticky issue, and it appears not even the best intentions will fully persuade a skeptical farmer that the government has good intentions. The Deputy President is seen as the most visible embodiment of that government in the North Rift. Nur Abdulaziz, NTV.
Now, mismanagement and inefficiencies at the National Cereals and Produce Board in the management of grain has prompted farmers to rethink their relationship with the NCPB. Now, a group of farmers in Uasin Gishu had been pushing for a milling plant which would handle their grain, add value and eradicate the NCPB's role. Now, leaders from the region wanted the management of the NCPB devolved. Here's Lois Wangoi with those details.
Revelations by Agriculture CS Mangikyunjuri that more than 60% of maize has gone bad while in the hands of government have shown the numerous challenges facing NCPB. Now, some leaders say the solution may lie in a change in strategy.
Agriculture is devolved. Why should the national government be handling cereals board? The cereals board should be handled by the county that has the produce and that can actually fill the store on behalf of the food security of this country.
NCPB is experiencing challenges in storage and purchase of grain. The current situation where more than 60% of the grain is not fit for human consumption has been brought about by a combination of poor management of the purchase process and the storage process. In the latest illustration of ineptitude, a majority of farmers who delivered grain to NCPB were yet to be paid, with suspect individuals paid billions for maize whose origin remains unclear. Many farmers who were yet to deliver maize were also locked out. NCPB said its stores were full.
These farmers used to buy tractors off the shelf, but now they can't do anything. The poorest part of Kenya, where you still have crushed tight houses, is where the farmers are.
Handling of purchased grain in the country is yet another function that NCPB is mismanaging, granted that NCPB is about to dispose 60% of all the maize it bought and stored last season, after KEBS declared it rotten. That means about 1.8 billion shillings declared as money spent to buy the maize by CS Mangikyunjuri is now going to waste.
I believe those maize are not the maize that were sourced from the farmers. Those are the maize that were imported from elsewhere. And they got spoiled because there were farmers here not to ensure that the moisture content of their crop is there too.
NCPB officials say most depots across the country need improved infrastructure as most of the equipment is outdated, broken down or are not functional, rendering NCPB a shell. Many farmers have found it hard to deal with the mismanagement at NCPB, and some are already formulating solutions. The Moi Soy Cooperative Society, which comprises all farmers in Uasin Gishu, has plans to put up a $500 million milling plant to add value to their maize crop and eventually do away with NCPB's involvement in the grain chain. Lois Wangoi, NTV, in the county of Uasin Gishu.
All right, well, the Ministry of Agriculture could have lost 4 billion shillings, which was paid out for the importation of maize, according to a report by the Auditor General Edward Oko. Now, this comes even as Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri blamed Treasury for the payment of over 16 billion shillings to traders who imported maize from South Africa and Mexico. Kiunjuri, who appeared before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on the Maize Crisis, says that Treasury gave a free window when it issued a Gazette notice for importation, but without consultation with the Ministry of Agriculture. Here's NTV's Silas Apollo.
We seek guidance to treat and consider.
Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri was before the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on Maize, which sought answers on the status of payment made to farmers for grain sold to the National Cereals and Produce Board, the amount of money the government had paid, and the quantity of maize imported into the country. It is during this session that revelation was made that part of the maize which had been imported into the country was rotting away in silos.
If cereals boards had money to pay the millers who imported the maize and cost the country 16-point-something billion, why didn't they themselves import the maize?
The committee was particularly concerned about the government's importation of surplus maize, which cost the country billions of shillings.
You said ESCC has been investigating. Has anybody been found culpable for this kind of fraud?
Kiunjuri told the committee that while he was not in a position to give a report on the status of the maize, the ministry was in the process of selling the grain at half price to avoid further contamination.
Why some of this maize is turning yellow is that because of the heavy burden we had collecting maize, the lines and everything, some of the maize we delayed emptying the silos, and the maize now had started turning yellow.
But Kiunjuri may not be out of the woods just yet. A report by the Auditor General Edward Oko says the ministry cannot provide proof of payment of some 4 billion shillings, which was paid to traders who imported maize. Payments were made in the year ending June 30th, 2017, before Kiunjuri took charge of the ministry. The amount, says Oko, was paid to 5 suppliers, namely MS Exports Trading, which received 3 payments totaling 3.6 million shillings, Haideri P Limited, which was paid the highest at 3 billion shillings, and Kitui Mills, which received 400 million shillings. The other 2 were Mombasa Maize Millers, which was paid 609 million shillings, and MS Pembe Flour Mills, which received 400 million shillings. The ministry also stored maize worth 1.8 billion shillings, but which was unfit for human consumption. This was during the 2015-2016 financial year.
As the Senate Ad Hoc Committee awaits a report on the contamination of the maize from the CS Mwangi Kiunjuri next week, they say that it is their hope that this will serve as a lesson to the government going forward. Silas Apollo, NTV, at Parliament Buildings.
All right, so those were some of the stories that my colleagues here at NTV covered over the last few months regarding the politics of maize and why really it is such a big and important issue. Concerns from across the board from stakeholders involved in the maize industry. Remember, NTV's Lois Wangoi has a panel of experts in our Eldoret studio and we'll be crossing over to her live shortly. But first, what's happening here in Nairobi? A press conference is due to start. It is being held by various maize millers at the Lyco Regency Hotel here in the capital. NTV's Victor Kiprop is covering that event. The millers are set to discuss the government's process of issuing maize, among other issues, no doubt. Victor, I believe the press conference hasn't kicked off yet, but at this point, what are you able to tell us?
All right, thank you very much, Smriti. We are still at the Laiko Regency. The press conference should be starting in a few minutes from now. But before that, there is a few things that we need to be expecting from that presser. Is that it follows the president's directive to the National Cereals and Produce Board to release maize to millers at a price of 1,600 shillings per bag. But the small millers under the umbrella body that is the United Grain Millers Association is now complaining of what they've just informed us is unfair allocation of the same maize by the NCPB. We're yet to get the finer details of what this is all about, but I guess that is what we can tell you for now. But we will be expecting more from, of course, this association. There are quite a number of issues that we expect them to discuss. Remember last year, the government and the millers had struck that a deal that 2 kilograms packet of unga should not go beyond 75 shillings. A month later, this same association came out and said that they can no longer sustain the same prices of 75 shillings per 2 kg packet. That story has never come back, and that's part of the things that we will be expecting to get a comment from them after that. Also, we are aware that the maize task force that the president announced it's setting up last year in October, which includes Uasin Gishu Governor Jackson Mandago, the Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri should be beginning its sittings to continue focusing and addressing the issues affecting the maize sector, which of course were a major issue last year as farmers continued complaining poor returns from the crop, even as others started considering shifting into other crops, including avocado. That's what we can tell you for now, Smriti.
Victor Kiprop, thanks very much. We expect that, or at least hope for that press conference to kick off at some point this morning. More from you as and when that happens. And as Victor mentioned, this task force has been set up under the directive of President Uhuru Kenyatta. He ordered that the task force be set up to look into all the issues surrounding farmers, maize millers as well, because of course farmers were constantly complaining of poor pay or even lack of pay. The statement was made by the president during the last Mashujaa Day. Let's listen in to what he said.
The factories that are not paying farmers promptly need to step up seriously to meeting their obligations in a timely and convenient manner. Farmers who have labored long and hard, and that is why I instructed that a task force be established, chaired by the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, to report within the month with the recommendations for restructuring this industry.
And that is what set the agenda for the startup of the maize task force. Let's take you over to Uasin Gishu County now. There in our Eldoret studio is Lois Wangoi with the latest on this particular topic. Lois, we expect the public participation to take place this afternoon in your county. Lots of eagerness and excitement, no doubt. Certain complaints as well. It will be interesting to hear from the various stakeholders this afternoon. But first, this morning, what can we expect from your panel?
Indeed, Smriti, it will be a very exciting afternoon today when farmers from the county of Uasin Gishu will be meeting with that particular task force, and it is expected that CS Agriculture, CS Mwangi Kiunjuri will also be in attendance and will be there to capture that very meeting. And I want to imagine it will be a very emotional topic, granted that maize remains a very topical and emotive conversation here in the North Rift. And among the 7 items that the task force will be looking to. I want to imagine the two that would be of great interest to farmers here is one looking into the mechanisms to reduce the high cost of production, and another looking to streamlining the maize markets here in the country. But before that conversation kicks on this afternoon, first with me in studio is a panel which comprises farmers from here in the county of Uasin Gishu to first of all paint a picture for us and to understand the season that has been for them, the last 2 seasons, and the onset of this particular season, what our farmers are going through, and they will be painting for us a picture of the mood currently of farmers here in Uasin Gishu and the North Rift in general. So seated next to me is Mr. David Chepsia. He's a farmer from Moiben. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. David. Seated next to him is Mr. Kimutai Kolum. Yes, he is a farmer from the constituency of Soy. And last but not least, lady with us, Madam Ruth Maraba. She's also a farmer from Moiben. Asanteni sana kwa kuungana nasi. And I will be starting with the ladies first. So, Madam Ruth Maraba, it is yet another planting season here in Uasin Gishu and by extension in the country. But just before we come to the planting season, paint for us a picture of how the festive season was to the farmers in the country.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Lois. Actually, as farmers, we are not happy this year. Things are not well. We are not happy, and God willing, we hope things are going to be good. Personally, and other farmers from my Moiben constituency are so demoralized. Our children have not gone to school. Farmers have not started plowing the way we always do, and things are not good. We have been told we are going to sell our maize from yesterday, and up to now, the farmers are still confused. We don't have the right price. The price is still demoralizing. Even the pricing itself is a problem, and even the procedure. We have been told after delivery, we are not even sure if we are going to be paid. So our farmers are still in a very awkward situation. Things are not good, and even most of them are not even planning to do the same business this year. But even planting is going to reduce.
Okay, and we'll come to that. Mr. Kolum Kimutai, how is the situation in Soy? What are farmers saying? What is the mood there?
Thank you, Louis. Thank you for having me in studio. But let me start by wishing you a happy New Year, because we are just begun the year. Well, when it comes to maize, particularly in my area, my farmers have very big challenges. One, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, has just announced that maize be delivered to National Produce Board at the price of 25 for 90 kg, but that's too small a price. We expected the president to maybe give us at least 3,000 so that we are able to break even, because to produce one bag costs about 27.10. So that price is still below what our expectation, but we are being told that Mwangi Kunjuri, the CS Agriculture, will be at this afternoon, and we shall have time with him, because we want him to come sit down with us. We reason together, because systems has to be put in place. Systems has to be in place so that we avoid cartels like last year. Unless we avoid them, then there's no way, there's no movement that we are moving forward, because cartels have already occupied this farming industry. Therefore, as a farmer from that area, we need to put systems in place. Even opening of buying centers, I don't support, because why is the personnel? Why is the security? Is the county commissioner informed? Does he have security to man buying centers? The personnel, most of staff from National Produce Board were stopped or interdicted last year. So they are very few, unless they employ others. So let us first know how we are going to bet our farmers too.
Before you go to Till, let me bring in Mr. David Chipse, just hold that thought, will come to you. The pricing of 2,500 as a farmer from Moiben, and even with conversations that you have had with your colleagues, do you feel like the 2,500 is adequately catering for the time, the energy, and the money you invested in your farms, and does it allow for margins of profits?
Thank you, Lois. Unfortunately, we have been here before, and we have been telling you the cost of production is 2710. So when we are over the 2,590 kilos, it's mathematical that we are running at a loss of 210. So it's obvious that we are not feeling comfortable because we are running at a loss. Instead of getting a profit, we are running at a loss. But we appreciate the president really. I think the president lacks more consultation on this, because the people who are concerned, they have to tell the president the correct figures, is smuggling in and then they're chipping in another way. So what we are saying is it's not bad, but it's not good. So if they have decided to buy at 25 shillings, let them buy the whole maize then. Because when they say they are only buying 2 million bags, it is too low. So we are requesting even to add another 2 million to 4 million so that they buy the whole maize for the whole biomass. One other thing which is very much challenging is the other time they have said they are disposing the maize that are in the cereals and produce board at a price of 1,600, which is impossible. You cannot trade in at the same time when you are bringing in the new ones and you are offloading the one this floating the market is a scandal in its nature. Because how can you sell 1,600 when we are buying at 2,500? And we are Kenyans, we know all our people what they are doing. They might be both themselves imposed to be millers, then they buy at 1,600
and sell again at 2,500.
So it is very impossible. So instead of doing that, let them kill off that project until maybe April, May, so that they will start reselling that one. Let them create other spaces. They have recovered their stores. So let them use those stores to upload the whole one, and then they buy these new ones, because they cannot do the same business at the same time.
You're right.
Yeah.
And Madam Maraba, are you also of the same opinion that the way the government intends to do it, therein will lie some problems, that cartels will also cash in on buying the maize from grain reserve from the government, then selling it back, thereby disadvantaging our farmers?
To me, Lois, I don't understand how this government works. Because how can you buy from a farmer at a cost of 2,500 if that one is going to happen? How can you buy at 2,500 and sell at 1,400? Actually, there must be something fishy, or there's something wrong we don't understand. Usually they say these things should be demand-driven. At times when you want to get an officer from the Ministry of Agriculture, they tell you, invite me as per your demands. It's always demand-driven. But when it comes to selling our products, it becomes something else. Nobody consults a farmer. Nobody talks to a farmer. When you're buying your seeds, when you're buying your fertilizer, nobody consults you. But when it comes to selling, it becomes a very, very big issue in this country. So I don't know who is going to support this farmer. The politicians are there, everybody is there, the civil servants are there, but nobody is feeling for this farmer.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mr. Kimutai Koluma, I want to bring you in now. We have had the president directing the CS Agriculture to purchase about 2 million bags of maize, but he also noted there was a bumper harvest this year. So truth is, a majority of the farmers will not have access to the government market, that is NCPB, and many of them will fall into the hands of millers. Currently, they are buying a 90-kilogram bag between 1,400 shillings to 1,700 shillings. Where does that leave the majority of our farmers will not be accessing government markets?
Thank you, Luis, for that question. I would like to again repeat and thank the President what he's doing to the farmer of Kenya, or to the farmers of Kenya. Well, our expectations this year is 46 million bags. That's our expectation, for 6 million bags. Then here, we are being told 2 million bags will be bought by strategic grain reserve. That's not enough. It's just like a drop in an auction. Where will these 46 million bags go? And you have heard my friend here say they are selling maize from National Cereal and Produce Board and CCB at 14 to 1,600. this is, I don't even if they will buy, because now cartels are going to be there, yes. They'll buy the maize, which is in National Cereal Produce Board, and maintain it there, then send to National Cereal Produce Board, just the paperwork that's going to exchange. That is a terrible thing to do. I pray that they may not do that unless, well, we have stores that were rented out to businessmen. Let them repossess those stores. We deposit our maize there as farmers. Then during the month of April, May, they can sell, but you cannot do at the same time.
So farmers would rather the president holds the selling of maize from NCPB first.
Yeah. Yes, true. I pray God that they may do that. Yes.
Okay, and Mr. David Chepsey, will come back to you on the same, because someone watching from home may not totally understand why farmers are saying this cannot happen concurrently. It will have loopholes for cartels, and you will break that down for us in a bit. But in the meantime, NTV today takes a quick break. We'll come back with the same conversation of maize here in the country. Thanks for staying with NTV, and NTV Today continues with the conversation of maize in the country. Remember, this particular morning, the task force that was formed by the president to look into the issues of maize is currently having a sit down with farmers in the county of Trans Nzoia. Here in the county of Uasin Gishu, we expect that task force to also have such a meet with farmers from this particular county later in the day from 2 to 5 p.m. and we will be standing by with that particular conversation later in our subsequent bulletins. But first things first, this morning, if you're just joining us, we are on the topic of maize. Remember, this conversation has been topical, say, for the last 2 or 3 planting seasons in the country, granted the problems that have been facing the maize farmers here in the country. Now, before we continue with my panel here in studio to continue painting for us a picture and breaking for us down the numbers involved in the business of growing maize in the country, I want us to first of all go to the county of Nakuru, where my colleague Bridget Ngana is standing by with farmers from that particular county to also understand their views and thoughts on the same. Ngana, if you can hear me, very good to see you and Happy New Year. What are the farmers of the county of Nakuru, my home county, saying regarding this particular topic of the business of maize? Ngana?
Thank you so much, Lois Wangoi. A very happy new year to you. It's great to be back after a small hiatus. But speaking on matters maize, we are standing behind the National Cereals and Produce Board Nakuru Depot, and the scenes at the depot itself are rather funny or rather different from our expectations, because we expected to see farmers coming in droves to sell their maize to the government, but apparently this is not the case here in the South Rift, Nakuru County being the headquarters here. So what is happening right now, this is a drying grounds and various farmers are bringing in their produce. You can see maize being brought in, and there's a lorry right now depositing some wheat grain that is also being dried, and these are private farmers who farm more than 100 acres of the produce in terms of the wheat. We understand that farmer has stopped growing maize. He used to grow maize with about 600 acres under the crop, but now he's chosen to switch to wheat. And also adjacent, there are other farmers who are saying that it is rather frustrating for them to sell to the government and not even be paid. The issue actually that is discouraging them from going to NCPB, even despite the presidential directive, is that the government does not pay in time. And if it does, there's a lot of favorism. And even when it does, we understand there was a scandal even to that effect regarding the farmers selling their maize to the government. But here they are saying they are doing this to sell to the private millers. And so what is happening here, this is an activity that predominantly takes place every morning between now and 2 p.m. and these farmers will be submitting their produce to private millers. They are saying that within 2 days maximum, they'll be able to get their benefits back or their monies back. And also the sun is free, because they're saying if they go to dry even with at the NCPB that has dryers, it's really costly. We're being told that it may even cost them 300 shillings to just dry 1 bag of maize. But we are also here with one of the people involved in this activity. Unaweza karibia tu kidogo, uniambie majina yako na utuambie kwa nini wakulima katika kaunti ya Nakuru hawauzi mahindi yao kwa NCPB, na tuko tu karibu na NCPB.
Kwa majina naitwa Peter Sepe. Sisi tunafanya biashara ya kuanika mahindi hapa kwa kiwanja. Kitu yenye ambayo tungeweza kusema, wakulima hivi sasa hapa hata Nakuru na wafanyi biashara wenyewe wanaweza kununua mahindi, wakuja wakausha hapa, wapeleke millers. Preferably juu government I pay on time. So they decide to come and dry the maize, then they take to millers, because millers they pay on time.
Wewe as a stakeholder, unajua it's one thing to bring the maize kutoka kwa shamba na wenyewe kuhakikisha kwa the right people, ikiwa ni other serikali ama the government, you play a very important role in drying the cereals. Tuambie, kwa vile rais aliamua bei ya mahindi iuzwe kwa bei fulani ambayo alisema, wewe unahisi kwa hiyo bei itanufaisha wakulima, ama unaona kuwa wakulima wengi wataamua kuhama katika upanzi wa mahindi?
Ningependa kusema hiyo bei yenye rais alitangaza si mbaya sana, ni mbadala kwa wakulima, lakini tujajua vile wakulima wameamua kuhusu mahindi yao. Juu hivi sasa hata tunaona hapo kwa National Cereals and Produce Board hakuna magari ya mpanga laini kuweza kuleta mahindi hapo. Sasa tuwezi jua hatima ya wakulima. Yeah.
Na wewe unasema changamoto ni gani, kwa sababu nakumbuka tukifika hapo ulituambia kwa ule mkulima wa ngano amesema alikuwa kitambo anamesha zaidi ya ekari 500 za mahindi, lakini sasa ameamua kulima ngano. Wewe unahisi umekuwa ukiona wengi wa wakulima pia wakiamua kuacha kupanda mahindi?
Hivi sasa wakulima wenye tulikuwa tunajua waliokuwa wakipanda mahindi si wengi sana tunaweza jua, lakini wengi pia walibadilisha kidogo, wanapanda ngano. Wengine wanapanda pia hizi bale hizi za kupeleka Kenya breweries. Hivyo ndo naweza sema.
Unafikiri ni nini inafanya kuwa na mabadiliko kama hayo? Ni bei ama ni vile hakuna njia nzuri ambayo wakulima wa mahindi wanaweza kupata faida kwa ile kazi ambayo wanafanya?
Hivi sasa vile tunaongea hata hivyo kwamba iko baadhi ya wakulima pia wajelipwa wenye walipeleka mazao kwa uzaji wa nafaka hapa National Cereals and Produce Board. Ndio wakulima pia wanahisi ni kama bado kuna changamoto juu kuna vile nilikuwa nasikia vile rais aliweza kuelekeza wizara ya ukulima pesa ziwekwe kwenye National Cereals Produce Board, ndio vile wakulima kama kadhaa watapeleka mzigo huko walipo kwa hiyo siku moja ama mbili. Nadhani wengine watafuata vile mimi naona hivyo. Ndio.
So wewe unaona kuwa kazi yenyu itaendelea kuwa mingi kwa sababu wengi wanaamua wauzie private millers, na nyinyi pia naona hapa kazi imechacha zaidi, itaendelea kuwa kwa wingi katika siku zijazo, unaonaje?
Tunaonelea sasa juu wakulima kama wataleta mahindi kwenye National Cereals and Produce Board ama wafanye biashara wenyewe, tunaona hata sisi pia tutakuwa na kazi pia kuanika kudry mahindi. Ndio.
Tueleze maybe manufaa tukimalizia. Kuna pale ambapo unasema National Cereals and Produce Board wako na dryers ambazo zinatumia stima, lakini pia manufaa gani ambayo mnayo hapa katika kuanika nafaka kwenye jua in open ground, inasaidia nini? Na pia nyinyi pia naona mna vijana ambao mmeweza pia kupea ajira. Tueleze tu ni uzuri gani ambao kazi yenu inasaidia katika kuimarisha usalama wa chakula katika nchi hii?
Kitu cha kwanza, wakulima naye waezi peleka mahindi kwenye National Cereals and Produce Board waende watumie hizo dryers because inatumia stima, inakuwa expensive, so they prefer to come to the field here because it is not expensive the sun drying. Juu ikifika masaa ingine kama mchana hivi saa 8 saa 9 tunanua ya mahindi tunapakia kwa gari. Wakulima kama ni wakulima wafanya biashara wanapeleka kwenye soko na sio bei ghali sana upande wa kausha na jua. Jua unaona ni pia ni Mungu anatupea jua, stima ni expensive. Yeah.
Pendekezo lako maybe kwa serikali ama kwa wadau ambao wanaweza saidia kuimarisha hali katika swala la mahindi nchini, ungependa ni nini?
Mimi naona rais angebuni mikakati na yake bodi fulani yenye itaweza kusimamia hii usimamizi wa mahindi na nafaka hii. Juu inapoingiliwa na watu wengi hivi wakora sasa unaona wakulima nayo wajenufaika upande moja au mwingine. Sasa inabidi serikali ibuni mikakati, iweke kitu fulani kama kikundi cha kuangalia wakulima na kuwashughulikia hivi. Ndio.
So much. Santi, those are the sentiments of the one in charge of the drying of cereals here. And the irony, as he has said, is that we are just right behind the National Cereals and Produce Board here in Nakuru, and he's confessing that he's not seeing farmers coming in droves. And so we do have a sense that maybe even despite the presidential directive that the prices should be reviewed, the prices have been reviewed rather, and the farmers are expected to be selling their maize to the government. There's still a lot of hesitation from the farmers. But Lois, the conversation continues, and we do expect that at the end of the day, the farmer will get benefit for their toil in the field. So Lois, from Nakuru, it is bright and sunny, and we do hope also the committee on maize, the task force rather, is also expected to be Nakuru from tomorrow and Thursday. And so this is a story that we'll also be following it up from this end. Lois.
Many thanks, Ngana. Indeed, those concerns, we hope they will be captured in that particular task force, even as that meeting is expected to also continue in Nakuru County tomorrow. But first, I'm now back with my panel here. Seated next to me is Mr. David Chepsia. He is a farmer from Moiben constituency. Next to him, Kimutai Kulum, a farmer from the neighboring constituency of Soy, and Madam Ruth Maraba, a farmer from the constituency of Moiben. Let's start with your reaction. You have had what the people or the farmers of Nakuru County are saying. What reaction do you have, Mr. David Chepsia? They are of the opinion that they would rather sell their produce to the millers. Government process, they say, is too tedious. I want to believe they're talking about the vetting process, especially for large-scale farmer. You are a large-scale farmer yourself. Are you also of the same opinion that at times millers prevent the better alternative?
Thank you, Lois. Thank you, Lois. I'm not of opinion of the same, because first of all, if you are a farmer, you know exactly the cost of production. So those people from Nakuru that are saying they are selling their produce to the millers, let them be aware that right away now, even the government themselves, they want to dispose their maize, the stock in the cereals bought at 1,600. So it means himself he has also to lower ease to 13 or 14 so that they qualify for the millers. Because there's a ready market now for 1,600. The government are offering to the millers. First of all, you have to know that if you are a farmer, the cost of production are stated earlier. Then maybe that person is not a serious farmer. Maybe as for this maize at 900 in Uganda, in Transoia, there were a lot of standard farmers earlier. So maybe the maize that they have in stock now, they are bought at less than 1,000 shillings. So it's not a genuine farmer.
A trader. You want to believe the person speaking was a trader. Kimutai Kolum, do you also borrow the same opinion?
Well, thank you very much, Luis. Well, this person, I don't know why you plan to see Nakuru, 1,000 acres. Oh, did you say 1,000 acres? Yes, 1,000 acres.
600 acres.
600 acres. Where are you in Nakuru? Is it in Joro? Subukia? Where? But I'm of the same opinion. What Mr. Chepsia said is just the same, because I know they were buying maize at, these are traders, they were buying maize at 900 in Kitale, Transoia. Then Uganda, I think it was low as 800. So they are taking it to Nakuru, and they are willing to dispose at any price so long as they make their own profit. So it's not, that person is not a genuine farmer, it's just bearing there to be seen on TV and to make people think that I would want to know who his neighbor is. Because that one is a traitor.
You want to vet that farmer?
Yeah, I would want to vet
I hope your process will not be tedious.
It will not be tedious, because I'm a genuine farmer myself, yes. Even if we go now, if we have time to visit my farm, you will find my lorries full of maize, my store is full with maize, and I have maize outside. When I sell at 1,600, that's ridiculous.
Okay, fair enough. But Madam Ruth Maraba, through this, there are actually some farmers who are desperate enough to opt for the millers. Does this go to show the level of this organization within a government market at NCPB, and that's why some will opt for 15 or even 1,600 shillings a bag compared to the government's offer of 2,500?
Yeah, I might also disagree with my friends, because the way farmers are so desperate, they can do anything. Maybe first thing, they fear to take the serious board because of the delay of payments. Secondly, the procedure might also be so tedious, and even the fear of unknown. The farmers are so desperate, so they can just do anything. Secondly, maybe they have also negotiated with the miller. Maybe they have gone there, talked one-on-one, and maybe he has a better price than the price we know for the millers. Or else 1,700, actually, that you will not even get the breakthrough. The breakthrough can also be a bit tricky. So my worry is that our farmers are so desperate, and they can just do anything. Like where I come from, most of the farmers are not even going to sell their maize to the cereals. Most of the farmers have decided to grind the maize and give it to the animals. So even the issue of food security might also arise at any time. Because most of the people are so scared because they have not been paid last year's maize. There are also the fear of payments. They may not even also be paid. So we still have a lot of worries.
And speaking of where you come from, I did have a word with your Member of Parliament, Mr. Sila Tiren. He did appreciate the pricing of 2,500, but noted it will not go in any way into ensuring that farmers make a coin out of the last year's planting season. Still, he was also speaking about the issue of diversification, and he challenged the government to conduct just a survey around it to understand if, let's say, venturing from maize to avocado will be a solution to a majority of the farmers in the grain growing counties here in the North Rift. But first things first, let's listen into Mr. Sila Tiren. Remember, Mr. Sila Tiren has been very vocal on matters or conversations maize here in the country. Before we get your reactions on the point Mr. Sila Tiren was trying to make to us.
Tuomba president because kwa agenda 4 ama hii kazi ile amesema yenye anataka kuacha legacy agriculture iko ndani. Na kwa sababu ya food security pia Kenya, hawa watu wakulima ya mahindi wanapanda mahindi kwa sababu Kenya, maize is a stable food in the country. Na ikiwa stable food, hakuna njia wa Kenya wanaendelea na kitu yote bila mahindi. Na tukifinya ama wakulima wasipoweza kufaidika wasiweze kurudi kwa shamba, itakuwa tunasaidia cartels. Mimi nataka niseme tu hivi ni kuwa mkulima akiwa frustrated asiporudi kwa shamba, cartel anafurahi because atakuwa na namna ya kuleta mahindi kutoka nje. Na jiulize, kwa hii maneno ya avocado, je, kuna visibility study ama research imefanywa so that ijulikane kuwa ukipanda hii kitu utatengeneza pesa ama ni vitu yenye anasema hivi? Kama kuna kweli watu wenye wamesema wako tayari kuimport ama kuexport ama wako tayari kuimport kutoka sisi, wakuje wapate kama ni cooperatives ama wakulima wafanya agreement na hawa, kwa sababu avocado ni kitu itachukua mwaka 10 ama mwaka 8 ikuwe tayari. So tunataka agreement ya karibu mwaka 20 kuwa hii avocado ikikuwa tayari hawa watachukua hiyo mimea, na watupee guarantee kuwa hii vitu pesa tunaweka tunapanda avocado tutaweza kupata returns huko mwisho. So tusidanganye watu wetu wafanye blindly waenda wapande alafu mwisho hawana mali ya kupeleka.
Concerns there by Moiben MP, Mr. Sila Tiren, granted that he comes from a county that contributes heavily to the food production here in the country. Then his concerns, of course, will elicit a number of reactions from farmers, especially here in the county of Uasin Gishu. But just before my panel here reacts to those thoughts and views by Moiben MP Sila Tiren, let's also listening to what other farmers are saying. My colleagues Stephen and Masharia were able to speak to them earlier, and these are their views on the business of growing maize here in the country.
Kazi ya President of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, kwa sababu hii bei tumepata imetupatia nafuu. And as a sign of appreciation, we as farmers support him fully.
Pesa itangulie iwekwe kwa account ili tunapopeleka iwe safety. Tunaweza peleka mahindi kwa bovu kwa kukubaliana, alafu tena tuanze madeni. Kwa hivyo
cereal ifunguliwe tu kwa haraka sana, kwa sababu wakulima wanateseka, wengine wanataka kulipa school fees. That's why leo ukienda unapata cereals wote wakulima wamepeleka mahindi na serikali tayari haijakuwa tayari kununua mahindi. Tunauliza Bwana Kiunjuri, kama rais amesema mahindi inunuliwe Kenya, wewe ni nani unakataa kufungua cereal? Watu wenye watafetiwa ni watu wenye hawana title deed, hawana mashamba. Kwa sababu wakulima saa hizi hatuwezi tukajidanganya. Wakulima kupitia kwako rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya ni watu wale watoko kuliko wewe ambao hawakupata mashamba. Mashamba ya mwisho ilipeanwa 1969. Na wenye wamesaliwa chini ya hapo ndio wakulima wa sasa wenye wana nguvu, wenye wanalima na hawana mashamba. Shamba wenye wanalima ni ile ya papa yao, mababu wenye wanaenda kukomboa. Sasa tukienda vetting hao watatupwa nje kwa sababu wataulizwa wamelima wapi.
Na sisi kama vijana tumepata to be educated through maize. Na hakuna venye tutaambiwa tuache mahindi ati tuende kwa vitu zingine. Tungeomba sana rais ambaye ni Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, tilia mkazo sana kwa mambo ya agriculture.
Indeed, those are the concerns of colleague or fellow farmers here in the county of Uasin Gishu, and we have their colleagues here in studio, and we continue with that conversation. We start with your reactions. You have listened to Moiben MP, Mr. Sila Tiren. Mr. David Chepsea, you are a resident of Moiben. Do you agree with your area member of parliament that indeed, if farmers are discouraged through high costs of production from going back to the farms, then we will be paving way for cartels within the maize business?
Yes, Lois, exactly. It is true, because when you frustrate farmers, they lose interest in farming. So they opt out of farming. So we create room for cartels, and the cartels are very happy. In fact, if the people are like-minded of Tiren, Kenya could favor, because it's only the Tiren, the MP of Moiben, that they are crying with farmers. I thank Tiren very much. Tiren is a farmer by himself. Before we went to parliament, he was a farmer. So he understands exactly what they're feeling. Yeah, so other member of parliament, we have in North Rift here, we have member of parliament, 6 of them. So, and they are not doing anything. Only Tiren, Kutuny, and Keter.
Fair enough. Let's come to you, Mr. Kimutai Kolum. On the same issue, are there actually farmers who are opting out of farming or even reducing the scale of farming they're doing right now, as Tiren is noting?
Yes, it is true, because they are not able to go back and plow the same acreage. People are now reducing. Those who are doing 1,000 acres are doing 600, 500. Yes. Mr. Tiren, Honorable Silas Tiren, is a very honest man, because he does also not less than 1,000 acres. You see him as an MP, but he's still farming. He's a farmer number 1 here. He does over 1,000 acres in maize, then wheat also. Over 1,000 acres. He's a man who his farms extends from Kenya and Marakwet County to Uasin Gishu. So he knows what he's talking about. So what I'm in support is, before you do anything, before you start any business, there's a visibility study that has to be done. Have these guys done? Have they contracted some farmers?
On diversification?
On diversification, yes. Right. You can do it in a small way. You have vegetable curtain, you know, or along the fence. You can plant, avocado and the rest, but not in 1,000 acres. Who will buy? Because that is, I am in support, 100% support of Honorable Silas Tiren. Yes. And
Madam Ruth Maraba, many people watching from home at times do not understand why farmers from this particular region are not very open-minded to diversification. What many may not know is a majority of farmers here are probably large-scale farmers, and if they will be moving from growing maize, say, to horticulture, some of them do not even have the know-how. Paint for us a picture. What are farmers saying? Are they open to new lessons, to new ways of crop diversification, as some politicians may suggest, led by Deputy Governor William Ruto, that perhaps it's time we try avocado here in the North Rift?
Actually, Lois, diversification is good. It's very good. But the problem is that it's not an event. It is a process. I think we should go to our farmers, tell them what we are going to do, the whole thing, so that it doesn't sound that we just make alternatives without thinking. Personally, I appreciate the diversification, but the problem is that we talked about this when we lacked the market of our maize. We didn't talk about this for the last 50 years. We have been seeing farmers, but this one just rose up. When the farmers started complaining about the maize, why have they been silent for all those years? They just came up with this issue the other day. So I wish... So
farmers think it is not a genuine solution?
It's not a genuine... Actually, even personally, it's not a genuine solution. I do plant avocados, I have mangoes, I have even part of my farm as macadamia, but it doesn't serve the purpose of... the current problem. It's not going to solve the current problem. So I wish our leaders could tell us the truth. There must be something. There must be something wrong somewhere. Finally, Lois, about that. Mheshimiwa Tiren has been so focused about this. But the problem now, it has become political. It sounds as if he's talking from another area. So I wish our people could be sober. We elect our leaders I think we have a problem even in the leadership. When you elect somebody who understands your problems, you get the solutions.
Right.
So at times even we elect people who doesn't know farming. We elect the young guys who came from the university the other day. So when you talk about farming, it sounds so different. He stays in Eldoret, he just goes to an hotel, he gets his food there. When you start complaining as a farmer, it becomes something else. So I wish we could get people who understands our problems. You cannot talk about children having problems if you elect somebody who came from school the other day, is not married, is just enjoying his money. So actually, what problem does he have actually? So I think we have a problem even with the leadership. People elect the wrong people, and that's why we have problems.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we did also get thoughts and views from residents here in the county of Uasin Gishu. A very interesting one, saying, a farmer who was saying, cash first. Before I take my maize to NCPB, I have to be assured government has money, and immediately I deliver my produce, then cash will be paid promptly.
Yeah, no, the farmers are worried. You know, the other season, people were paid after 1 year after delivery. So that is the fear. So when
you were among them, right?
Yeah, I was among them. I was with last week, last month I mean. So people are worried because you deliver, you are not paid, you have nothing else to offset your debts and whatever. So people are worried. Really, money should be ready first. People should be assured that when they deliver, they will be paid in a certain period. That is it. Yeah.
And of course, when government will start these particular purchases, NCPB, has it opened its doors yet, Mr. Kolum? Is NCPB open? No?
They have not opened, but we have lorries. I was in Maize Bridge on Sunday, yes. Lorries at the extent of about 2 kilometers.
Okay.
I came to the street at around 10 o'clock at night. I found about 26 lorries and tractors queuing, yes, and they have not been bedded. People have so much in need of money. You know, they still have children at home, they have not gone to colleges. Some of them are not even able to send their children to Form 1 because they have no money. So people are waiting anxiously to deliver their maize. But as for the payment, somebody has suggested there, no, we don't challenge the orders of executive. The executive, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, has said that there is money. So we have no worry. Why should people worry? Why without the President? And the President is farmer number 1. Yes, I know there is money. Yes, because the President has given executive orders and he knows that there is money. Yes. So we have no doubt. I know there is money. Yes.
Ruth Maraba, there is money.
Yeah, if the President has said that, we believe the money is there. But our fear is this cartel, whom we don't know. These are big animal, the cartel. They keep on telling us the cartels, the cartels. So up this year, we are not going even to get the word cartel, because I fear anytime they mention the cartels, they just make things go high.
Right. Yeah. And of course, before any payment is made, the process of vetting is very, very key within the Ministry of Agriculture. Some call it tedious. The government says it's very necessary as a way to stem out the cartels. The vetting process so far, do you believe it is for or against the farmer?
Yeah, it is not against the farmer, but really it is a true channel so that they get the real farmers. But they have to streamline to know exactly who is the real farmer. They have to go to the farms. Before we deliver those maize, they have to go to the stores first.
Right.
Because right away, the traders now have stocked their maize in the go-downs. They are ready to deliver. Even we are not even know. Those who are queuing the line now, Mr. Kuluma said in Maize Bridge, there are about 150 lorries. Eldoret is about 30 lorries. We don't know exactly whether they are the traders, they are the real farmers. So vetting should be seriously struggled. One other thing, is I disagree with my colleague who's here saying that maybe the money is, the president has said the money is ready.
Awaiting the click of a button.
Yeah, no, we have been told that last time that the money are there, we shall be paid next week. And then that never happened. So never believe on a human being. Yeah, the president might say like that, but the management itself, from the office of the CS, they may delay, even from the treasury. That's why they took a very long time to be paid.
So even as farmers take their produce to NCPB,
they have to think twice. They have to remain with a little bit maize so that they will sort that.
In case the government does not work out, then they'll take to millers.
Yeah, they have to have the plan B.
Interesting.
That's why I'm saying the millers should be there to be a plan B. They should not dispose this maize 1,600 because after receiving these 2 million bags, the remaining surplus should be sold to the millers. The millers is the ready market. So when they float this market to the 1,600,
once government sells
that is
to
the end of the road.
the millers.
Yeah, it's not attractive. Yeah, so it is very dangerous there.
Okay. And of course, there was the issue of NCPB. I want to believe the highlight when it comes to purchase of maize will be on NCPB. There have been quite a number of complaints regarding the institution. Poor management is one, continued illustration of ineptitude is another, and some were of the opinion that NCPB, it's actually time that we devolve the functions of NCPB even to smaller scales, so that farmers are able to work with NCPB directly and to eliminate even the brokers along the way. So what is your thought on NCPB? Is it serving purpose? Where is the challenge within NCPB?
Thank you, Liz, for that question. And I believe I have the best answer. The answer is NCCP staff should be restructured.
NCPB?
Yes, should be restructured because the staff there are so much attached to traders. So that when I deliver my maize there, it takes me up to 21 days. That's 3 weeks. While traders or cartels takes just their day. At night, they do at night. For the farmers, they do at night. For the traders, they do at night. So there should be proper structure. I remember even last year, I was delivering my maize. About 100 lorries were served before me, and I was ahead of them. So there must be structure in place. Security also has to be priority number 1. And that anybody found missing should be sent home. There's enough room at his home. Let them go home. We have young guys who are willing to work and work without discriminating others. Yes, so, but as for buying centers, I think that's where you are driving me. No, unless the county commissioner is informed, we need security because we don't want our maize to be stolen. Yes.
Okay.
And that, I think that one will help. Yes.
Okay. Your experience, Madam Ruth Maraba, on NCPB?
To me, there's nothing difficult for the government. If the government is going to be very strict and very keen, NCCB will still serve the purpose. But the problem, we always forget things. You'll find us using the same officers, even some are undergoing court cases now, and you might find the same officers being in those offices. So I wish the government could streamline issues, and I always believe the government have all the machineries, and if they are ready to work on it, things will just go positive.
Okay. Yeah. And Mr. David, before we take a short break, or rather even as we come back, I want us to talk about the issue of politics and maize, because we can't separate the two. Granted that residents have also elected leaders to put in legislative framework and to ensure that our farmers are adequately catered to. So we come back with a conversation of the role of politics in maize and how it goes to assist or not assist farmers. In the meantime, we take you first of all to our studios in Nairobi, where Smriti Vidyarthi will be continuing with the same conversation from our other reporters in Nairobi. Smriti.
Thank you, Lois. All right, earlier in this broadcast, remember that we had mentioned that a press conference was being held by various millers here in Nairobi at the Laiko Regency Hotel. That press conference has happened and NTV's Victor Kiprop attended it. We can now cross over live to Victor to get an update as to what exactly happened at the conference. Victor.
All right, thank you very much, Smriti Vidyarthi. We are still at the Laiko Regency right here at the Central Business District. Remember, the conversation of the challenges facing the maize industry continues. And as I'd informed you earlier, the United Grain Millers Association was set to have a press briefing to give their update on the some of the issues in the sector. And at the moment, I'm standing with Peter Kuguru, who's the chairman of the United Grain Millers Association. They're saying that after President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive last week that that the National and Cereals and Produce Board buys maize from farmers at 2,500 shillings per bag, there have been a few developments which they believe could, shift the market forces and might see the prices of unga changing very soon. Mr. Peter Kuguru, what's happening?
Thank you very much, viewers. My name is Peter Kuguru, chairman of United Grain Millers Association, and I'm here with the executive committee of the millers. I'm here with Lucy Mudhoni. We have informed the press today that we have seen the price of maize meal, particularly ugali flour, being distorted by an agreement reached by a few unscrupulous big millers with some guys in the government, whereby they have agreed that the debt owed by the government to those millers be paid to them in form of maize rather than in form of cash. But the maize has been devalued to 1,600 shillings per bag, and they want to give those few millers the maize 1.7 million bags out to these few millers. It's like giving them free. This is going to have an effect of distortion of the market. They're going to take undue advantage over the other millers, and they are going to sideline them in a market by lowering the price of ugali, at the same time by increasing the price of maize meal in the market, and the small millers will not be able to exist. What will happen is that once the government had announced that they'll buy maize at 2,500 shillings from a farm, which is okay, the farmer started selling the maize to us at 2,500. And if you buy it at farm level at that price, it reaches the miller at 2,700. And I would say that at a price of 2,300, we're able to sell 2 kilo unga at 90 bob. But at a price of 2,700, the price will exceed 110 shillings per packet. So there will be market distortion. What we are recommending to the government is not to agree to sell this maize to the big millers at exchange price for the debt owed. The government should sell the maize to all the millers at a market price. And then,
of course, the question there would be, are smaller millers able to access this maize?
When the government releases this maize to the small millers have got a milling capacity of 70% of the total milling capacity in the country. Therefore, we shall take all this maize within a week or two, give the government money cash, and the government will pay those few millers who they say they owe money with cash against what they owe them, cash to cash.
You mentioned that this could lead to an increase in maize flour, which is a situation no one really desires. How can we avoid this in the final comment?
How we can modulate the price to a reasonable level within the market forces is to allow the market to play its own settling, so that whatever price the government will sell, the millers will be able to put the maize meal to the consumers at an affordable price. But if the government interferes with the maize market industry, it distorts the price, and the consumers will be disadvantaged.
Finally, the public sittings begin today by the Maize Task Force, which was formed by the President in October last year. I'm not sure if you are part of that task force, and what are your views going forward with this task force?
I'm a member of the task force as an individual, although I'm chairman of United Grain Millers Association. And right now we are holding public participation forums so that we can hear what the members of the public are going to react. But the issue about the 2,500 is that the government wants to buy approximately 2 million bags for storage in case of famine and drought as an intervention. So they'll buy that maize. That maize is not for resale to the millers. That maize is for storage. The task force is not only looking at the price. The task force is looking at wider issues, including how to help the farmer, how to help the industry, how to modulate the whole industry for now and for the future.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Peter Kuguru. That's the chairman of the United Grain Millers Association. And as you had right there, Smriti, the smaller millers are now complaining. What they say is information which they have received that the maize at the strategic food reserves would be given out to bigger millers as payment at 1,600 shillings per bag, a situation which they say could result in the government losing up to 1.7 billion shillings. So, of course, the conversation is much bigger. It will have to continue beyond this and in our subsequent bulletins. But right now, that's what we have for you from the LICO Regency, Smriti.
All right, Victor, thanks very much. Interesting views there from various millers, and no doubt, Lois, your panel of farmers can comment on the latest from Nairobi. Back to you, Lois Wangoi, in our Eldoret, beg your pardon, studio.
I think that is what.
But this one is from North Korea.
Thank you. Thank you, Smriti. And we will start with a reaction from my panel. You have had the thoughts on the team of millers being represented by Mr. Peter. I think Karuki, I didn't get his second name. Mr. Kulum, what are your thoughts and opinion of the same? A reaction?
Well, I think millers should be left alone to decide on the prices so that they don't have so much control. Let us have free market, yes, so that our maize can buy maize at the price that is favorable to farmers.
Okay. Madam Roth?
To me, I feel the millers are not genuine, because if they could be genuine, they could just be buying our maize even before the opening of the serious boards. So right. They always wait for the serious board to open, and they make a price after the serious board.
Okay. Which is usually lower.
Which is usually lower. And whenever you have a problem with the serious board, that is the time the millers buy your maize. So I believe the millers are not genuine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. We'll continue with our conversation. Mr. David Chepsia, I want us to talk about politics a bit and the role of politics when it comes to maize. We did hear a number of politicians coming to question or the motive of some politicians who are taken to the defense of farmers with regarding to the issue of pricing. Of course, without naming names, do farmers feel that politics has a role to play when it comes to the business of growing maize in the country?
Yeah, no, it's exactly. Politics should play its role properly, because, you know, the politicians that we have are the representatives of the people.
Right.
So whenever they deliver anything in the parliament or whatever they go in the forums, they really say what the farmers are feeling. So politics should be there. So exactly when you remember that at a time when they are making policies, I remember I went to parliament that day.
Yourself?
When we were arguing about the prices of this maize or the delayment of the payments. I met one of the representative of that an MP from Samburu. So when we asked a question about this maize, he exactly directed whom to do consult before you start planting this maize. So the politicians are the representative of the people. So we shall not abet politics. Politics should be there. But politicians should be genuine. They should have to deliver exactly what the feeling of the people. Yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Kulum, rightfully so, without naming names, of course, do you feel like your political leaders have done their very best when it comes to sorting out the problems within farmers who are growing maize?
Well, politics is there, and politicians have not done to our expectations or the expectations of farmers, apart from some two senators and maybe 3 MPs. The rest, I think they went there just as dealers, not as leaders of farmers. They have forgotten us, and for anything to succeed, must have a political will. I've been to National Assembly many times. Even this ongoing National Assembly, I've been there, and we have talked with the MPs, Committee on Agriculture, but our MPs are not there, apart from those I've mentioned. Some very few. We don't have a political will. And anytime we visit there, we are told, and we elected people. Those MPs we elected, normally when there is anything to do with farming, they rush to the toilet. I don't know, they drink a lot of water so that when it comes to implementing policies, they rush to the toilet. So very few are left because they don't get the vote. So political will has to be there, but we don't have. I know we elected babies.
Okay, fair enough. And even as we wind up, Madam Ruth Maraba, very quickly, the planting season is here, and of course the biggest issue will be the provision of subsidized fertilizer and seed to farmers. Talk to us about that very briefly.
Yeah, subsidized fertilizer is there, and we are almost planting, but up to now the farmers are still confused because they have not. Last year, most of them have not been paid, and even this year have not sold their products. So even talking about the fertilizer and even all the other subsidies is not of any value now because our farmers are still confused. They don't know whom to run to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Very briefly.
I think with fertilizer, we are supposed to have a budget. Let the government or Ministry of Agriculture be open. Let even traders do business. Then they are given a voucher. You're given a voucher. You pay. Then they're given a voucher. You go and collect your fertilizer. Otherwise, if we go the same way we have been going, then there's no much we are doing. At least we'll go to National Street and Produce Board, buy fertilizer, then come and change the price outside and sell at certain price. So if I wish everybody could be allowed to sell, then you use vouchers. You go and pay. Then you deliver your voucher. You are given.
Good. And Mr. David Chepsia, we did see Jubilee government launching the fertilizer blending plant. It's in Ingeria. It's called Ingeria, right? Yes. Has that gone to assist farmers from the region, or do you think that was yet another project that brings question to the Jubilee administration?
Exactly. That go down is just there. It's just there because it was created for nothing. Because it is not. It is to do nothing. Yeah, it is there in Nigeria, but we have not seen the purpose of it there. It is even good to be demolished. Yeah.
Okay. Indeed.
But I would like to challenge Jeff here.
Okay.
What they are doing here is blending. It's not a fertilizer factory.
Yes.
What they do is blending, and they are a specific soil. What they do is specific soil. Fertilizer that they do. I wish they would be given subsidies so that they sell to farmers. So that they sell to farmers. Otherwise, it's open.
Is it of any impact to farming in the region?
It does not have any impact because people pay. But what I know, what they do, they do the best fertilizer because the soil is specific. If it is Moiben, it is for Moiben. If it is for a pan forest, or it's for Joro, those sides of Joro, Transoia, Pungoma, PTM.
In soy, in particular, are you yet to enjoy the fruits of that particular fertilizer blending plant?
Yes, we are yet to enjoy, but because their prices are very high.
Oh, the pricing is very high.
Very high, very high. Yes, it's not competitive. Thank you.
Okay. There's something I wanted to mention about politics and maize, Madam Lois. Last year, things were good, and even our politicians could talk about our maize. Though there was this issue from Mexico, but still we could hear the voices of the politicians. But after that, whenever we reach a time for election, things are always good. Farmers are really sweet, talk to
towards
election. Then after that, things are just left like that. So I feel we should really connect politics and our maize.
True. Yeah. You should get value for your vote. That's what you're saying. Farmers should actually get value for their vote. Yes. Many thanks, Madam Ruth Maraba, Mr. Kimutai Kolum, and David Chepsia, my panel this morning, taking us through the business of maize here in the North Rift, and mainly painting for us a picture. I want to believe after this particular conversation, they will be preparing to attend to that task force meet, which will be led by CS Agriculture Mangi Kunjuri here in the county of Uasin Gishu. And remember that particular task force is looking into 7 key points of ensuring that the business of growing maize and those also benefiting indirectly from it, thereby make profits, if any, from that particular farming venture. That should be it from us here in our Eldoret studios. We take you back to my colleague Smriti Vidyarthi in our Nairobi studio to continue with the same on NTV Today. Smriti.
Right. Lois and your team there, thanks very much indeed for that contribution on NTV today. Great, interesting insights, and as Lois said, plenty of activity expected later on this afternoon in the county of Uasin Gishu. No doubt we will get an update from you, Lois, in our subsequent bulletins. Thank you. All right, you have been watching NTV Today, and we continue. Next up, it's the business news segment with NTV's Julian's Amboko. Over to you, Julian's.
Thank you very much, Smriti. Yes, we are now ready to talk business, and on to matters banking. Small and medium businesses and unsecured borrowers could soon be subject to higher interest rates than provided by the present ceiling if the proposal sails through Parliament. In a letter dated 14th January 2019, Gatundu South Member of Parliament Moses Kuria has written to the Speaker of the National Assembly seeking to introduce an amendment to the Banking Act. The amendment would maintain the cap to the lending rates at 4 percentage points above the central bank's benchmark rate and introduce a risk negotiation window of up to 6% for small and medium businesses and unsecured borrowers. This proposal aims at unlocking access to credit by small businesses, which has been stifled since adoption of the cap on lending rates in 2016. On to matters further afield. A crucial vote to determine the destiny of Brexit will take place later today in the UK Parliament. Members of Parliament will vote on whether to accept Prime has announced new pump prices to be used for the next month, with the prices of super petrol and diesel both reducing by more than 9 shillings. In Nairobi, super petrol decreases by 9 shillings and 33 cents to retail at 104 shillings and 21 cents. Diesel will now sell at 124 shillings and 24 cents, which is 10 shillings and 4 cents less. Kerosene users are set to pay less by 3 shillings and 52 cents for every litre at 101 shillings and 70 cents. The significant reductions have come as a result of the average landed cost of imported super petrol and diesel decreasing by more than 14% in the period from November to December 2018. During the same period, the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Kenya shilling appreciated marginally by 0.27% from 102 shillings and 44 cents in November to 102 shillings and 16 cents in December. Sugarcane farmers from South Nyanza now want the Ministry of Agriculture to explain where 2.6 billion shillings owed to the farmer is. Late last year, President Uhuru Kenyatta acknowledged the debt and ordered that farmers be paid before Christmas holiday, but that didn't happen. The debt, according to the ministry, dates back to 2014. Mumia Sugar is owed the highest amount of money at 189 million shillings, while Sony Sugar has 512 million shillings. The least debt, is to Chemelil Sugar at 201 million shillings. And staying with matters sugar, a section of sugarcane farmers have accused the government of sidelining them in the ongoing discussions to reform the sector. The farmers, who have formed a parallel task force to present their views to President Uhuru Kenyatta, vowed to thwart any attempts to sneak zoning into the sugar regulation. Ouko Kusa reports on that story.
In their hundreds, they march to the Prosperity House, where a task force recently formed by Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri sits. They accused the CS of establishing a 16-member team without consulting them.
Kama una shamba unawakilisha nini? No. Kama mila za serikali zinaanguka, MDs ndio wanasimamia, watafanya nini? Wanachukua wale failures ndio wanakuja kuwakilisha sisi. We are not party to that. Tunataka uwakilishe sawa sawa.
The farmers who presented their petition to Governor Anyang' Nyong'o's office picked former chairman of the defunct Kenya Sugar Board, Saulo Busolo, to spearhead the parallel outfit.
Tupenda kujitetea sisi wenyewe, sababu kwenye task force jopo kazi lililopo la serikali kwa wakati huu hatujawakilishwa, na kwa vile hatujawakilishwa, sisi sasa tumejitenga, tujitetee sisi wenyewe, tuandike maoni yetu. Kwa Kiingereza wanasema the shoe knows who the wearer is. It pinches the wearer.
The farmers warned that any attempts to dictate to them on where to sell their cane would amount to a breach of the constitution and an insult to the establishment of Lake Region Economic Bloc, whose objective is to open up trade to member counties.
Hatutaki zoning kabisa completely. Hatutaki ukabila, zoning inaleta ukabila Kenya, na hatutaki, sisi ni wa Kenya, tunataka kuwa kitu kimoja.
The government formed task force is scheduled to conduct public participation forums beginning January 16th to 18th in Kisumu, Homa Bay, Migori, Busia, Kakamega, Bungoma, Kericho, Kisii and Narok.
As the task force goes round, we are only going to entertain them on issues of our money, nothing else. Either they are bringing money ama wakae hapa prosperity. Sisi tunataka pesa, kuna kitu kingine.
Ouko Kusa, NTV.
And that wraps the business bulletin for now. More in subsequent bulletins, but now I hand you over back to Smriti.
All right, Julian Zamboko, thanks very much for that business brief. Of course, more news coming your way during our 1 o'clock broadcast. Well, you've been watching NTV Today this Tuesday morning. Thanks very much for your company. We have been live from across the country, primarily in our Eldoret studio in the county of Uasin Gishu, where the Maize Task Force is set to take place with its preparations and its feedback sessions later on this afternoon. For now, though, do stay tuned to NTV. Coming up next is NTV Sasa with Kaltun Jama.